Yeah.
This is the vegan anarchist, and in this hangout, we're gonna talk about why cops are terrorists. Hashtag ACAB. Hashtag fuck the police.
And that is why you always keep a towel on hand. Alright, so now my screen's finally showing that it's live. Are you... Okay.
Same.
Finally. Okay. So, yeah, we are going to be talking about the police and why they are why they're a human epidemic. Why they are like the fucking plague.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the police shootings, the amount of shootings have gone up recently, and people are sick of it. People are sick of it.
And to be clear, we're talking about the system encouraging this generally, where we're saying that this system can turn even good people into bad people. We're not trying, like, if you have a parent that's a cop, they might not have gone in with evil intentions, but they do go into a system that forces them to do this kind of stuff.
Well, no, all cops are bastards because the moment they joined the police force, they sold out. And
they might not have known. At the same time, they also might not know what they're getting into. Again, I'm using the basically libertarian socialist rants argument about Lisa, where it's like, Mom, I know your intentions are good, but don't you think the system is a very oppressive system?
That was
yeah, there are Nazis and all sorts of people like Al Qaeda and ISIS who have good intention. That everybody wakes up in the morning and goes to the mirror. They don't think they have bad intentions. They think what they're doing is good.
Yeah,
which is a problem. They think what they're doing is good because they're brainwashed to think it is.
But in reality,
they think
bastards.
Their religion is the end goal. Their caliphate is the end goal. That is ISIS's end goal. You've seen the maps they put out, and then they show a large swath of land.
Well, you also have to admit that with the police, the rhetoric's quite a bit more insidious, where the intentions of the police are a bit more hidden. We are taught that law enforcement, that's where I'm going with it, where the Nazis were just kind of out with their hatred of Jews, and they said, well, hatred of Jews is a good thing. The police are like, well, no, we're just honorable people trying to protect the public, but they are really just sellouts to the rich when it comes down to it, and it's a system meant to keep the poor poor by criminalizing being poor, and to basically keep the capitalist class on top.
Yeah,
whether it's intentional or not, it's still a system-wide issue. It's a systemic problem that needs to be. It's a system that needs to be smashed in general. Needs to be scrapped for parts.
Yeah, that's what people don't know. People think the main job of the police force is to prevent crime. Wrong. The main job of the police force
is to enforce the law, and the law is whatever the capitalist class has decided will be the law.
The main job of the police is to protect the capitalist class. So when the working class goes out in mass protests, waving their signs, banners, maybe some get violent, whatever, when they do that, the police are going to be there to shut it down.
Regardless of whether there's violence or not, and then all of a sudden, if you use de-arrest tactics, you are a union thug, according to Steven Crowder.
Steven Crowder.
A union thug tried to push me or tried to punch me. Well, actually, if you look at the video, you can see that the guy was on his knees at the beginning of the video, pushed down from behind, obviously from where you're standing. So it's obvious you fucking pushed him down. Of course he's gonna go and turn around and try and hit you because you just fucking pushed him over.
Exactly. Anarcho-vegan wrote, exactly. They protect the hierarchical structure.
Yeah. Exactly. But even the police are told that their job is to their job is to protect the public. Their job is to protect people. Their job is to enforce the law quote, enforce the law. But the law is basically whatever the rich and the elite have decided is the law. We don't have
Well,
direct
hold on
democracy.
there.
We don't get to vote on our laws. We don't choose what the laws are. We don't there are no practices that are the working class doesn't get to pick the practices of the police. The police don't enforce the rich and don't enforce crimes the rich commit because because of stuff like quota systems, which force them to arrest a certain amount of people. So they're not going to look for rich people who might be doing something that's technically criminal, but there's no victim involved. They're going to be looking for a poor black guy who they don't care and who society doesn't care ends up in prison, which keeps the weak down and keeps the powerful on top.
And don't forget
but the issue with that is that our parents teach people us not to steal, but that's part of a cop's job is to steal.
Don't steal. The government hates competition.
Yeah. So literally, they're doing something that
corporations basically end up falling in line, or they end up buying the government, which means that basically at this point the government is a sock puppet of the corporations. I mean, look at how the politicians get into power in the first place. They need to raise all kinds of money, and historically that has always been through super PACs and through private funding. That private funding is coming from a corporation. That means that now those corporations aren't donating to a politician in good faith. They're donating to a politician expecting something in return. So maybe expecting that people look the other way when they commit fraud, Goldman Sachs. But yeah, these corporations aren't giving that in good faith, like, oh, you're going to do the right thing for the people. No, they're giving it in good faith that they're going to do the right thing for the corporation, which is
by the way,
like,
Anton,
okay.
Can you look over the comment section, because I kind of have. Yeah, thanks. All right.
I can look over the comments section too.
You want me to make you moderator, Ross? Also.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes, fine.
So I can't believe Steven Crowder called some guy Union Thug.
That happened a while ago. It was actually covered by, funny enough, The Amazing Atheist.
Yeah.
The Amazing Statheist. Hey, structure is designed. Okay, it's pretty reading. The structure is designed to reward those who consent, and designed to try and have them believe their reward is to move up the class structure.
True that.
Yep.
That's very true. You fed this myth when you're younger. You always fed the myth about the businessman who rose from rags to riches. And you could be that guy, man. You could be that.
All you need is a small loan of $1 million from Daddy Trump. From Papa Trump. Yeah, I think that was one of my favorite things. It's like, maybe for your father, it's a small loan, but if I tried to go to a bank and get a loan of $1 million, one, I couldn't fuck it up as bad as Donald Trump did when it comes to his money. I'm not that terrible with money.
No.
Two, with a loan of less, I could probably be as rich, if not richer, than Donald Trump, because I'd have that big head start just from that. So Donald Trump is already he's bad at retaining his power, for one, and two, he was just given so much money that it doesn't matter how bad he is with it, it's going to stay with him.
And also because he used bankruptcy laws in the system, he helped rig to basically benefit himself.
Yeah. Yeah, and do you guys think that he's not going to keep it that way? Yeah. And I mean, yeah, the cops and because the cops are funded by the government, these businessmen who own the politicians basically are indirectly controlling the cops. So it's kind of like hey, if you know what's good for you, you're not going to touch the guy's son at all, are you? no, yeah, you're not going to arrest my kid at all because I pay your paychecks, you dumbass police officer.
Yeah,
I can get you fired.
But in Wall Street, and they used to have this thing called where they would search people, stop and frisk, but they rarely stop and frisk the Wall Street.
They've never stopped.
The white collar terrorists. They always stop and frisk the so-called low-life ghetto people.
Right.
Yeah, the
thugs.
Yeah, it was specifically to. It was always a specific target of the lower people, the people who they could get away with. Because if you arrested the judge's son, the judge wasn't going to be very happy that you arrested his son, and he was going to get his son out at all costs. So it's kind of like that system where someone who's in a powerful position, they're basically above the law, and the only people who are actually being enforced by the law are the people who have unfair laws put on them, which are the poor people, such as criminalizing drug addiction, where if someone is an addict because maybe, just maybe, they need to numb the pain because they haven't been near their family for years due to something in the past, or maybe their family died, or whatever. They're trying to numb whatever pain. Maybe they've lost their job and they haven't had a home for a long time, and they just need that one thing to keep them sane. Just make a law that says they can't do that, and we can get those people off the street and get these streets looking nice. Now,
Right.
if there isn't anything more if there's anything more insidious and more criminal, I don't know what it is. The police are literally the biggest fucking gang I've ever seen, and they don't even know. They are taught that what they're doing is honorable. Occasionally, they might keep someone who's a murderer away from the public and keep some people safe. But that's only a byproduct because that happened to make it in the laws. Almost every other arrest is because of the prison industrial complex, because the prisons aren't even owned by the state. They're now directly owned by corporations. So now they are basically incentivized to basically keep standards as low for the prisoners as possible so that they can make a profit. And they're publicly funded, too. So just like if you publicly fund a prison, the state doesn't have any. The state isn't trying to make a profit, like a business owner would. So the state is just going to spend the money required to keep the prisoners alive. But if the state's paying someone else and run the prison, they are now basically saying, okay, whatever's left over is the money that you're getting. That's going to be your profit. And they're paying about the same amount of money, which means that these are getting their standards lowered just by the fact that there is a middleman in corporate who is getting the money before they're feeding these prisoners. Because I don't know if you know this, these people in prison, even if they're murderers and rapists, they're fucking human.
Yeah. And it's ironic that cops and Blue Lives Matter call Black Lives Matter and black people thugs when Blue Lives Matter literally defend actual thugs and terrorists that terrorize entire neighborhoods, and they're thugs because they steal money from innocent people.
People are terrorists. There's plenty of footage online. You can find a massive compilation, 20 minutes long, of cops shooting people without any reason to shoot them. No people looking at the cops. They just go bang, bang, bang.
Yeah, it's a shoot first, ask questions later.
And a lot of them are trained to have biases.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's what the police system is designed for, is to catch runaway slaves, and also to just crowd control, because they can't allow those pesky workers to get out of control.
As much as I hate TYT, they have had a couple of good interviews. They interviewed a former police officer who talked about how colorblindness Look at colorblind, this idea where you're trained to, quote, not see race, to not see race doesn't contribute to them being less racist. It contributes to them being more racist because while they are specifically targeting black people, and they're not thinking, maybe we're killing more black people at disproportionate rates because we've decided that these are the people who are thugs, and we're not looking at any kind of scenarios. We're being complete. It's kind of like the neutrality bias where it always leans conservative. When you look at the media, you get the neutrality bias in CNN and now and then MSNBC, which all of these are corporate media stations, but because they don't want to be accused of being liberal, they're going to try and say that the conservatives have a point when the conservatives don't have a point.
And they have a false dichotomy bias, and they have a heavily huge establishment bias. It's off the roof.
Yeah.
Of course they do.
But yeah, the colorblind bias is basically the same as the neutrality bias, where much rather than looking away from racism, it leads towards racism because it'll make you blind to what looks and what resembles racism, the obvious signs of racism, such as specifically stopping and frisking black people, and not just stopping and frisking what police have done, or what basically the powerful have dubbed as, quote, suspicious, where what is suspicious in their eyes is really just whatever is associated with black people or poor people.
Yeah, but and white-collar crimes are rarely punished, and the government goes out of the way to avoid prosecuting Wall Street thuggery and Wall Street terrorism.
Yeah, look at what Goldman Sachs did. Goldman Sachs sank our economy in 2008. They just fucking did. Because they owned enough politicians in the government, those politicians were like, here's a $5 billion fine after you crashed a several trillion fucking dollar economy. I mean, it seems like the scales are tipped a little bit. Like maybe they paid less than their damage.
Well, the thing has been since day one, Americans been tipped. Our country's full of rich. I know because the revolution was a bourgeois revolution.
I am specifically using this as an example that just kind of shows the tipping automatically, the tipping that's already there, because they've already paid so much to these politicians that these politicians are basically trying to pay lip service to the people while they please their corporate masters. Goldman Sachs, they pay $5 billion, which, for how rich they are, $5 billion was fucking pocket change.
Yeah.
And so they have to pay. That's like if I murdered someone, and they're like, okay, their funeral's $10,000, but you only have to pay about $1. Or you only have to pay about 1 cent. Like, it's like, okay, that's pocket change. I got that on me right now. For Goldman Sachs, $5 billion for a near $1 trillion company, $5 billion is nothing to drop. That's like a normal person dropping maybe $1 at most. That's something most people can do, is drop $1. Most people will have at least $1 on them at some point. There might be people who have less, but I'm saying the average person in America or the UK. So yeah, I mean, tip the fucking economy, pay $5 billion. If I don't see, there is nothing more profitable than that, because you're only paying a little bit of price. I mean, that's a less than 1% taxation.
Oh, we have a question. Where are the anarchists and communist freedom fighter guerrillas in the USA?
They don't seem to exist.
Yeah. Well, except for a few insurrectionists, is nearly absent, and that's the problem. We're trying to build it up, but it's really hard giving our government stocks people.
It's a lot more mobilized in Western Europe than it is in America. In America, workers don't bargain for much. They only can get healthcare if they in a job. Don't they give them?
Well, yeah. What's funny is that the U.S. started way ahead of countries when it came to the individual freedoms that many of these people had. But because in Europe, these people already didn't have those freedoms, they're basically like, well, we know this system isn't going to do anything for us, so we're going to constantly fight this fucking system. But in America, it's, oh no, the system's been good to us because, yeah, sure. When it was first done, it's like, oh yeah, we were one of the first, well, not the first, but we were, like, compared to Europe at the time, we didn't have a monarchy. We replaced it for something only slightly nominally less oppressive than a monarchy, but still technically not a monarchy.
It was more of an oligarchy.
Yeah.
Instead of one person running the country, there was a few rich people running the country.
Yeah.
And they always point to early America, just after its founding, after they broke away from the British. They always say they were libertarian. What was libertarian about them exactly? What was libertarian? Anything? Anything libertarian?
Well, I mean, it depends on which founding fathers you're looking at least for their time. Like, yeah, modern day, like when it comes to the modern day, they'd basically be like the aristocracy from back then. But if you compare, if you compared someone like Alexander Hamilton to the other founding fathers, he was one of the only ones that was against slavery, who thought maybe this impedes on other people's rights to just kind of keep them as slaves. But America was like, nah, black people aren't people. Guy died in 1804, just 4 years before the international slave trade was banned, which means that America was one of the last places to ban slavery when it comes to the developed world in general, when it comes to the non-exploited, or I don't want to say non-exploited, but when it basically comes to the white, what people will refer to as the developed world. The U.S. was one of the last countries to ban slavery. And you want to tell me this is the free world? I mean, Europe was ahead of us quite a fucking bit when it came to that, because Europe fighting, and that's what you have a really strong presence of the extreme left in Europe. You don't have that in America.
Well, you don't have but it was destroyed by McCarthyism and the Red Scare.
Right.
Yeah. But, yeah, we don't have that presence anymore of anarchists, of communists, of just, like, the radical
libertarian
left.
Socialists, yeah.
Well, yeah, there's the libertarian socialists, like, even, like, tankies are technically part of the radical left, but they're also complete assholes and basically are looking for a system that isn't too far different from the one that we already have.
Also, I refuse to work with them.
Yeah, I refuse to work with them, too. I'm willing to work with libertarian Marxists and with some liberals. I'm not willing to work with the liberals who are completely dismissive of gender and racial politics. People like, so basically the only liberals I'm not willing to work with are the edgy liberals, the ones who basically are like the pro free speech and capitalism, because they're basically right libertarians who call themselves liberals.
Yeah, Sargon is anything but left wing.
I think
you know what's funny?
I mean, if people
and many times he went all Bill O'Reilly. Sargon is basically the Bill O'Reilly of the millennial, and he goes after like black lives who are being murdered by cops. Well, other people are too. But...
Oh, Sargon's definitely a shell of the system. Like, he's as bad as the fucking police. Like, the way it comes, he's so fucking irksome. I can't even sit through any of his fucking videos.
I know I don't like Sargon, but he's not as bad as some people are.
Like Bering is horrible.
He's really good at portraying this air of pseudo intellectuality. Like, he's really good at covering it up and making it look like he's actually an intellectual and not just the pseudo-intellectual manosphere twat that he is.
Well, there is Stefan Molyneux who I don't understand ANCAPs. Why do ANCAPs 1 minute talk about how the state is evil, and then when black people get shot by cops, suddenly they're the biggest cop supporters ever?
Oh, it makes me think of that It makes me think of that meme that I posted once of Stefan Molyneux. It basically says, first I was like, you shouldn't vote for the. You shouldn't vote because you perpetuate this oppressive system, and then after that, he basically was like, but then I had to deal with brown people, and I was like, vote for Trump.
but then again, Stefan Molyneux.
A lot of these anti-caps are fucking hypocrites. Like, they say, oh, fuck the system, fuck the government, government is theft, government is taxation, taxation is theft. And then they say...
Well, they basically want this society where there's no government to even serve as, like, armor against the sword that is capitalism.
Government is violent.
Actually, not be completely contradictory.
What? Fuck?
Because you know why they're not being absolutely contradictory? Because they're for private police.
Yeah, they're for private police.
Okay.
Yeah, which would then basically, that would be even, like, it's definitely less subversive when it comes to it. Like, it's pretty straightforward about what it is. If it's private police, it's basically like, yeah, you know what? If my boss ends up getting into legal trouble, I'm not going to do anything about it. And I'm part of his private army, and I'm on his payroll. So if your private army comes after him, my job is to defend it. I mean, that means the police are literally beholden to their bosses in an even more direct way than they already are.
And if this is true, let's talk about anarcho-capitalism a bit, right? They want a society which lets businesses run rampant. So what about if there's two businesses, Coca-Cola and Pepsi, competing in a town, and Coca-Cola has 60% of the market share, Pepsi has 40%. However, Coca-Cola has the larger private security firm. What's going to happen?
Coca-Cola is going to keep all its shares. Wait, you said Coca-Cola has the largest firm, right? Hell, if Coca-Cola decides to, Coca-Cola can say to Pepsi, "Hey, you stay in line, and I'll keep the amount of your market that you have where it is. I won't impede on it. But if you even try and look at me the wrong way, I am just going to send my private army to destroy yours, and I'm going to take all of your shares, and your company will be going directly under." I mean, that's what you would get out of anarcho-capitalism in that situation.
And that's how private police would go. Private police are a disastrous idea. There are private police companies in some places. There's one in Texas, Houston, I believe. And then they say, crime rate's dropped, guys. Crime rate's dropped. But that's because the private police were still controlled by the state in a way. They still had to prosecute laws that were decided by the state. Yeah. They did decide these laws themselves. You idiots.
Yeah. Because also, looking at anarcho-capitalism, who decides the laws? You know, it's always this nebulous thing of, like, you can have militias or something. Like, Anarchy Ball basically was like, oh, yeah, you can have a militia. The militia could be over at your house in a few minutes instead of the wait time that you get with the police. And it's like, what if your neighbors don't fucking like you? What if it's your neighbors burning down your fucking house? Like, what are your options? You have no options.
Die. That's your option.
Yeah, that's your only option. And then you're fucking homeless because you can't afford another place to live because all of your cash was in a safe inside of your house. Because there's no laws keeping people from destroying banks. I mean, private guards can only get you so far on that. People decide that they don't like the bank, or they don't like who runs it. They might just take all the money.
Like, what happens if the private guard just suddenly just turns on the people paying them and take the business over? By force.
Well, I mean, again, also, what if someone wants to take all the money? Who's going to actually stop them? I mean, who are the laws decided by, too? Like, in anarcho-syndicalism and anarcho-communism, there are people who just will, like, the whole society gets together and they'll do something, they'll write up something, I don't know whether we should call it a constitution or not.
Private police force in Iraq equal Blackwater who murders without answering to any law. They were the law. So they brought up Blackwater and how they were a private police. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it's basically the agreements you decide to subscribe to live in a civilized society.
Yep.
Hello.
Yeah, I mean...
What's up, Bobby? We're talking
Hello,
about
Bobby.
why cops are terrorists and we're supposed to go like ACAB and F the police propaganda here.
Yeah.
Yes, because dropping the word propaganda makes it sound more credible. I'm just dropping the truth.
Well, at least we're honest.
Right.
Well, I mean, it's not propaganda if it's the truth, and it's the truth given as bare and blunt as possible.
Well, it's called white propaganda.
Or as accurate as as.
It's called white propaganda.
Whatever.
I don't really care because...
Anyway, since you have basically just joined, how about you start giving out your takes of why you hate the cops so much?
Yeah, I've been talking for, like, most of it so far.
At least give Bobby a few.
Yeah, like I said, I'm going to give it to Bobby because I've been talking, like, most of the thing. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Well, I saw. One time, like, it's not there anymore, but one time there was actually an anarchist pamphlet in the locker room at my college. Like I said, it's not there anymore, but
they took it down.
Yeah, but it was, and it basically said the police are a classist, sexist, racist, homophobic, or organization
Europhobic
that is devoted.
I think I'm gonna vote for Trump.
That is devoted to the
I
perpetuation.
think I'm gonna vote for Trump. Yeah, he's a psycho, but I'm gonna vote for him because somebody's got a bomb Mecca, and it just might be a lunatic we're looking for.
Do you have to, Bobby? Oh God.
That is dedicated to the perpetuation of a corrupt, stultifying.
I'm not talking about like he's like locker room talk. He shouldn't talk about like how he broke women. That's so gross. It's disgusting. But
I guess Bill Cosby and Brock Turner were in that locker room.
It's a little different.
If that's locker room talk, that was a locker room with Bill Cosby, Jared Fogle, Brock Turner,
I've been saying that for 10 years.
and Jerry Sandusky.
Mecca.
And Jimmy Savile.
Telephones are the same.
Well, I actually saw a really good picture. It showed a girl and it basically with her hands in between her legs, and she said, "I grabbed my own pussy. Fuck Trump."
Iraq. Oh.
I'm like a bitch.
It's like people aren't offended by the fact that, like, feminists even aren't offended that Trump said the word pussy. We're offended that he talked about grabbing it without a woman's permission. Because he basically was like, yeah, you can sexually assault a woman because they'll let you do it. And then, yeah, basically, Rush Limbaugh went on to make a joke about how, oh, yeah, consent and everything. And I mean, I made a joking response like, yeah, consent is such a drag. It's almost like they want you to treat them humanely.
To like
Wow.
actually respect their individual rights and everything.
Yeah.
Autonomy.
I mean, what about their right to not have their to not have their genitals grabbed?
The reason I accept the consent rule is because it respects the person's autonomy. That's where
Yeah,
anarchism
that's
is.
specific. Yeah,
And you
and I mean,
oh, sorry, can't. Sorry, never
yeah.
mind.
I saw a great video. Funny enough, I saw a great TEDx talk that basically said why you think rape is wrong specifically matters. Because if you think rape is wrong because it's a violation of family honor, you think that it's a fair punishment. You'll probably think that it's a fair punishment to say, oh, well, your sister got gang raped by that guy, so we're going to take that guy's sister and we're going to have your family gang rape their sister.
Okay,
When that's a violation, and that's something that happens in cultures where they teach that it's a violation of honor. But in
like
cultures,
And also, the alt-right, the reason why they like to say that Muslims are rapists, and they only care about rapists when Muslims do it is because they're raping their women as they see it. It's our women, so we do what we want, but the Muslims cannot touch our bitches. That's how they see it.
yeah.
Right.
I mean, quite honestly, yeah. And I mean, when I think of police, I basically think of them as basically raping the population, whether they know it or not. They're people who think that certain things are wrong, but they think that they're wrong for the wrong reason. Like, even if they think that something's wrong, like, they'll think that murder's wrong because it's against the law. No, murder is wrong because it's a violation of a person's autonomy. Because you basically decided, well, I don't think you should be allowed to breathe anymore, so I'm going to put this pillow over your face, and I'm going to hold it there until you stop kicking.
You know, something you were talking about before brought me back to negative versus positive rights. Consent is a negative right. It says, I have the right for you not to sexually assault me. Look, I'm violating your sexual freedom. Sexual freedom is a positive right.
Yeah, I have the freedom. Yeah, I have the freedom to sexually assault you. Is basically what like when it comes to the libertarians, it's like
I have to economically oppress you. It's called economic freedom.
Yeah.
Okay, if you are a communist and you want to oppress everyone who wants to get money.
Yeah, so
no, we want to oppress any people who are going to use other people's labor.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah. Like the thing about right libertarians is, like I've said before, they're not legitimate libertarians. I mean, it's to say, oh, we want there to be a ruling class that has absolute dominion over the economy and over society. That's not liberty. There's nothing libertarian about that idea at all. It's pure corporatism.
It's like what Noam Chomsky says, where libertarian in Europe meant that you were actually trying to free people from tyranny. But now in America, and even just generally in the modern sense, it now means that you want as many small tyrannies as possible. And these tyrannies don't even have that slight accountability to the people, because corporations don't rely on people, where at least representatives have to get voted back in by people.
Yeah, true.
So it's kind of like if you don't even do the littlest thing for people, and you're a politician, and people know that, people will decide not to vote you back in. So your job depends on trying to placate as many people as possible.
Yeah, money
while still.
So far.
But then, if you put in the corporations will make their money no matter whether or not, because they're not voted into their position. And that whole vote with your wallet shit that fucking guys like Anarchist will say, where it's like, oh, you vote with your wallet. Well, ethical consumerism doesn't fucking work when you can't afford anything that's more expensive because maybe they didn't obtain it through African slave labor.
Oh my god! We have a troll spreading anarcho-Zionism. And then Tesian was like, free Palestine, GTFO out of you, Zio-Nazi Satanism.
Yeah, and then
I don't really care, alright.
Well, you know what's funny is I actually followed someone on Twitter who had Zionist in their they had Zionist in their bio. I thought that they were doing that as a joke because, like, I jokingly call myself a Zionist because I don't hate the fucking Jews. But then I saw all the stuff that this person was anti-Palestine, and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna follow you on Twitter anymore. Can't believe I was even in the same hangout as you. I was in a hangout.
Yeah,
I was in a hangout with them on the Skeptic Feminist, and it's like, oh yeah, no wonder this person went to bash Muslims because of course they're anti-Palestine. And we all know that Palestine has a lot of Muslims. I mean,
well, actually, yeah, although Palestine was originally majority Muslim, there was a Jewish and Christian minority.
Yes.
That was conveniently overlooked.
Yeah, it's conveniently
And there were also black Jews, Ethiopian Jews, but they're also face discrimination, which says it's basically only for white Jews.
Well, yeah. I mean, look at Israel. They're very liberal when it comes to Jews, and only if you're a white Jew. If you're an Ethiopian Jew, you're trash like those muzzies. I mean, that's the way that Israel looks at it, where it's like, oh yeah, you're just as bad as the fucking muzzies, and they basically look at it the way that the South looks at it, where it's like, oh yeah, if you're black, I don't want you dating my daughter. It's like, why the fuck does it matter who your daughter's dating? It's like,
because white genocide.
Yeah, because white genocide, this miscegenation is getting rid of all the black population.
Well, the issue with that is that if you go by biology, that actually helps the white race to have other blood in them.
Well, yeah, also, not to mention that the races as we know it isn't what
it's a social construct.
Well, they're not even the way that races are in biology, which is where they made up the term. Like, they're not a subspecies the way that biology works. No, we're all the same subspecies of human, which is Homo sapien. There was another subspecies. Yeah, there were a bunch of other subspecies of humans, such as Homo erectus, also known as the cavemen. So, or the Neanderthals, if you will.
Different species.
Homo erectus and Homo neanderthalensis are.
Well, the hominids are considered human, at least in biological terms, because that's where they go back when they say human evolution has been for 200,000 years. Because there, of course, there were evolutionary steps before then, millions of years before then, but they were more ape-like creatures than they were hominids. So you get to the hominids where you get to, I don't know all of them. I know that there was Homo erectus, also known as Neanderthals, and there were Homo sapiens.
No, you got that wrong. Neanderthals and Homo erectus are a different thing. Neanderthals
okay, maybe you're right. Okay, maybe they are.
And also, ironically speaking of that, white supremacists like to brag about how pure the race are, but it turns out the only race that doesn't have Neanderthal DNA is black people from Africa.
Yeah, I know. Neanderthal DNA in that's because Neanderthals evolved from African hominids that went to Europe and spent thousands of years in Europe. And then basically modern day Homo sapiens basically went further along in evolution in Africa before going to Europe. And then because they were able to make clothes for themselves to keep warm, they didn't have to get like this physical beef up so that they could keep their warmth in their body much better than before. Because now they can just already do that because they made these artificial clothes, and I mean the clothes were much more advanced. Like they made stuff that was warmer than what the Neanderthals had.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's the reason. So it's like, yeah, black people, the reason why they don't have any Neanderthal blood is because black people didn't have, well, unless there's black people who have somewhat European ancestry, because those do exist. Because, funny enough, miscegenation, which I really hate that word because of the negative connotation that it gets, but it was actually not originally a negative word. It's just the way white supremacists basically just bash any kind of mixing of human genes that are just slightly different in pigment. But yeah, the pigments simply evolved due to the amount of sunlight that they're exposed to. So you even get parts of Africa where the people aren't dark-skinned. But if you look at like Ethiopia,
black nationalism, black supremacists try to have the pseudoscience that they argue because blacks have more pigment melanin, that means they're superior. That's a pseudoscientific notion, but I want Bobby's opinion.
No, they're not. They're not superior. They're not superior because of that. No one's superior.
I know.
They're simply better for living in a climate that has more sunlight than someone like me is. Where
pseudoscience, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, well, no. Now you're living in a cold environment, so that's actually it's actually an inferior trait in the specific area you live. If you live in an area where there's a lot of sunlight, it is a beneficial trait. Although I'd say that Native Americans are the best equipped for American climate, although with the depletion of ozone layer, you're probably going to get even darker skinned people just by nature. Due to the fact that
the ozone layer is actually stopped shrinking and is actually growing back again.
Yeah, but I mean, that hole is still there. So, like, if you have any kind of change in pigment, like, if you look at someone 30 years ago, someone could go outside for an hour and expect not to get a sunburn. Although, like, someone who is as pale as me, and I'm very pale, but now I literally just going outside for 5 minutes on a summer day, I could come back in and the next day my skin is peeling because, oh shit, just 5 minutes out in the sun got me a gnarly sunburn. And I'm not even exaggerating with that. And I don't know. So, I mean, really, when it comes to your pigment evolves because of the climate that you were in. So you're not particularly superior. And really, that in itself means that race realism isn't really a big thing because we basically evolved to deal with all these problems, and we evolved to deal with different problems ever so slightly.
Correct.
Due to climates.
Back to the topic though.
Yeah.
Oh, fair enough.
Bobby,
Yeah.
You were interrupted. You
Anyone
talking
got
about the ACAB and the cops and why they're bastards.
Yeah, anyone got a question about cops in the comment section? Anyone?
Yeah. Like cops, yeah, like no shit. I've actually like
I've been arrested before.
Yeah, like I've never been arrested, but both my parents have.
Okay.
Several times. And the cops are like this. Like the thing is, like it drives me crazy that so many people have this masochistic worship of, authority in general, especially
the guardian temperament.
Yeah, the guardian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Trump's gonna protect us from,
by the way.
like
this whole.
Like I have family members who are basically like, well, no, we need to vote in Trump because Trump will protect us from the muzzies.
Because Trump's a law and order candidate.
Yeah, because Trump's going to protect us from the muzzies and those damn dirty Mexicans.
And like no shit, like I've literally debated liberals both in the comments section and real life on the issue of the cops and the military, and they're like, oh sure, the cops may be brutal racist bastard cons, but we need them to protect us and to preserve the social order. And I mean, seriously.
I mean,
No, we don't. We don't need these.
well, I mean, it's even worse when it comes to the ANCAPs. They're just like social Darwinists when it comes to it. They're like,
And
only
so
the
is
strongest survive.
alt-right. That's why there's a lot of crossover.
I didn't refer to
You know
this.
what's funny is that like some alt-right Christians are basically like, well, oh no, atheists just want atheists believe in Darwinism, in this idea, like they're immoral because they believe that only the strongest can survive and blah blah blah. And then it's like, then these people do a full 180 and are social Darwinist. Then it's like, well, what? It's like, well, if you were so moral, why are you being such a fucking prick into hoarding all your money to yourself? Like, why aren't you going and helping the poor, like you said? Is the message of Jesus?
Because they don't give a damn about what Jesus.
Like, why is it that
has been a scam?
They
Yeah,
just use Jesus for Jesus.
It's like, what about the atheists who are for
brownie points?
I mean, it really, in the end, comes to the difference between social justice and legal justice. What social Darwinists want is they want this legal justice, as in like a pecking order or a social order, where social justice just wants to get rid of social order, at least from a general standpoint, where they want to get rid of this idea that anyone is superior because is automatically superior because of their position. I think that people are better at certain things than others, and that's something to be embraced.
Yeah.
Is the differences.
Well, basically,
And you're not
saying that we don't think everybody's absolutely equal, and like what the Declarations are.
on everything.
We believe people deserve to be treated equally, even though they may not be equal, but they deserve to be treated equally because people who have subjective self-awareness and wishes and dreams deserve to have that respected.
All right,
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and another thing is like the institutional structure of the police historically, like
It's
like
historically been rigged against black people and poor people.
Since day
well,
one.
yeah. Well, yeah.
And all minorities, really, in the end.
Yeah. Although poor people and black people are allowed to join the police force now.
Token blacks.
Yeah,
but
just
the black
just
cops
because
are just as racist as the white cops.
I know. I'm not making that argument. Okay.
It's actually like
that
the
argument whenever liberals make it.
I hear that argument all the time. It's ridiculous. Like, just because someone's black doesn't mean they're not racist against other blacks.
No,
Hey, vegan.
I hate that fucking argument.
Hey, vegan. Or Bobby. Okay. Let me interject for a second because I just have something that I think is really good. It's exactly like in the show Luke Cage, where where these people are like, you may be black, but you're in blue, which makes you as white as them, which makes you as white as everyone else.
Yeah, basically. And also,
you may be black.
And
yeah, it was like, you may be black, but you're in blue, which makes you as white as all the other police.
And also, what also annoys me is a lot of conservatives, they pretend not to be racist, but they want blacks and Latinos like me to act white. And it's really, that's why they get
it's this idea of
dance and rap music, because they want us to be white.
It's why can't you be, like, I mean, when you look at it, why does America have to be a fucking melting pot? Why can't it just be a salad bowl? And where everything just sits together nicely, they're all different, so they're not just all melted into one homogeneous thing. They sit harmoniously and they all get along. Like, when I think of anarchism, I think specifically of a salad bowl.
And it's ironic too
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to it, the melting pot is just is a pretty racist thing when you look at it, because it's saying everyone has to be this one identity. It's very nationalistic. And I mean, the police basically enforce this whole melting pot idea. The conservatives, the whole melting pot is racist, nationalist bullshit. Because when you look at an anarchist society would be a lot more like a salad bowl, where everything just kind of sits together, gets along, doesn't kill each other. They don't fucking kill each other, but they all sit in the same bowl just fine. And they're not killing and raping each other. They're not like the Mexicans that Donald Trump describes, the straw men, the straw Mexicans, the rapists, murderers. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. They're murderers. And some of them, I assume, are good people.
There's a stereotype that Mexicans are lazy, but when I just look at the fields, and I see it all the time, the hardest working I see around me are Mexicans, and they're doing crap.
I mean, all
the Americans are just doing.
I'm just going to say, they literally cross a fucking border to do work that white people don't want to do, and you're going to call them fucking lazy.
Yeah.
They're coming. It's work that you say you would be humiliated doing. These people just want to escape this cycle of poverty in Mexico. They come in, and they do work that to the white population is considered demeaning, considered very low, like puts you at the bottom of the pecking order. But these people think that it's better than what they had when they were where things were even worse.
People should live.
They're working like dogs, and you have the gall to call them fucking lazy.
Yeah,
maybe you're the lazy fuck.
And another thing is that we forgot to mention Border Patrol, but I feel like it's a person's right to live wherever they want with whomever they want.
Yeah, that's my opinion on it.
Oh yeah.
So fuck the Border Patrol. I live a few miles in my dad's place. I'm literally right next to him, and fuck them.
Same here.
Also, living near Canada, I can tell you there's not as much Border Patrol on Canada as there is on Mexico. Because in Canada, they're nice white European culture. And it's like, yeah, we can get along sometimes, although the French and the British have a history of going at it. It's like they're not worried that these people are going to come over and bring drugs. But when it comes to the Mexicans, you got to watch that border. Like, there's a border fence there because you know how those Mexicans can be. But if it's Canadians, oh yeah, we don't really need much, just minimal stuff to make sure that people have passports to go there.
You know how to get rid of the
very minimal
stuff. Abolish the border. We don't want empty borders. We want no borders.
Oh yeah, I definitely want. I want a no border
open
system.
Border advocate. That's a straw man.
Yeah, I want a no border policy when it comes down to it, where I'm not like it's no borders is really the only sane way to go. The only terribly masochistic way to go.
There's no reason for borders to exist.
Yeah, they don't exist. If you look at the Earth depth, if you look down at the Earth from space, you see no fucking borders.
You just see a planet and you see lots of land and water and some clouds. But when you come down here, you can see that we've built all these walls. We're preventing people from going around these bits. And we keep setting these areas up and we call them countries. And they say, you've got to be obedient to this country. You've got to admire the flag. The flag guides your way.
Also, another thing is that...
Nationalism.
Well, yeah, it's
like Emma Goldman said in her critique of patriotism. Patriotism imagines the world as divided up into little plots of land.
Yeah.
And every individual person who lives on each plot of land imagines themselves as grander, nobler, and as in some way grander, nobler, and better than all the people living on every other plot of land.
Yeah.
Goody.
Yeah, I forget when I said this, but I made a post on Facebook once about how I specifically said the problem with our society today is that we're building walls and burning bridges when a healthy society does the opposite. Let's burn down some walls and build some bridges.
Sounds great.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I want to talk to you. Okay, yeah, there is a slight caveat because I do support bioregionalism, but not for like border or boundary purposes. But I think it's for like confederation and just resource and environmental purposes and promoting.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, but that's also a lot different. That's a lot different than nationalism is.
Yeah, and also bioregions don't always go along with national or state boundaries.
If you break cities up into small neighborhoods, yes, you will start to build culture in those small neighborhoods.
Yeah, and then even if you're not from that neighborhood and you move into that neighborhood, when it comes to bioregionalism, they're more forgiving than the national identities will be. Like if you're from another country, you're looked down on. But if you're from another, I moved neighborhoods constantly where it's like if I can't, like, I mean, when I was really young, my mom was well off and was able to afford a nice place, but then my mom was beaten by my father, and she was told to basically move somewhere where my father didn't have access to his kids, and so basically it was move away from my father. We moved to a poorer area. My mom didn't have the same funds that she had before, so we now lived in a poor neighborhood, and we were treated very kindly. We were treated as part of the neighborhood. And that's the way that bioregionalism tends to be, is it's kind of like get along with the people who are around you in your immediate vicinity. It's not this idea of hate everyone from the outside. It's just the idea of get to know as many people around you as possible.
And also, more importantly, get to know your surroundings and try to live with your environment instead of imposing on it.
Yes. Exactly.
And there's also a lot of emphasis on localism.
Right.
Which I support. Even a lot of right-wing libertarians support localism, albeit they support capitalism, which inherently destroys that. But yeah.
Well, it's kind of like how the right-wing libertarians support liberty, then they don't.
Yeah,
it's like they don't support your liberty to not be exploited. They only support the liberty to exploit.
Yeah, they only support the liberty of the.
I mean, no wonder they love the police.
That's positive versus negative liberty again, isn't it? It's the right to exploit versus the right not to get exploited.
Yeah.
And they also want the liberty to dominate the economy because they have more money.
If you have the right to exploit, you're taking someone's right away not to get exploited. That's what these idiots don't get. So when you say
we're trying to say, hey, let's look at the positive rights. We're trying to give the positive rights, not the negative rights.
Well, even they have been a lot of right libertarians only agree with negative rights, but the issue is the freedom from exploitation is still a negative right that they negate, which negates the whole ideology.
It's like, oh no.
And also there's pseudo libertarians.
Oh yeah. Remember when we talked to Love, Life, and Anarchy that one time, and I'm not sure if you were there, Ancom, but I know you were there, Vegan.
I wasn't there.
Kwame was there, where he basically tried to say, no, it's not exploitation. It's like the problem is you're looking at this from a Marxist perspective. It just.
Well, does he know that critique actually predates Marx? Like Proudhon said that critique.
I mean, that critique was even made by Plato, even though Plato was proto-capitalist in many ways.
Well, Plato basically was a welfare statist.
Also, not only that, but actually Christian socialists are able to point to some parts of the Bible which actually might you can interpret it to condemn wage labor.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at Jesus's message about the rich, Jesus fucking hates the rich. Like, if you look at what he says to the rich, he's basically like the line specifically goes, "It is easier for a camel to fit through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to get into heaven." There were lines about how you treat the poor is how you treat God, and that will decide whether or not you get in there. Because
it also talks about how and even fucking Nazis will point this out. Like, the Bible talks about how
well, remember, the Nazis also were trying to get support from left-wingers, even though they didn't actually like the left wing. They wanted to get sympathies from socialists. Yes. So they're choosing the name National Socialist Party.
To people.
Was specifically designed.
I know that, Ross.
Yeah, it was designed to do people, and the presidential election is just basically two sellouts, corporate shells, trying to see who can dupe the most American people.
I myself have pointed that out to multiple writers.
Yeah, so it's all elections who can dupe the most people,
such as Scotty M and majority are.
Aaron Clary.
Majority are minarchists, don't vote, and are against socialist/democratic evil. Yes, that's literally this motherfucker's long ass channel name, and he and his grammar is as atrocious as his username implies. Every bit as atrocious as his username implied.
Anyways, let's try to tie it with all the stuff we said back to cops, because that's what it's supposed to be about.
Yeah, it's funny because when I tell people that, especially people on the right, that we don't need the cops, we can police ourselves. They're like, but we do need the cops.
Union thugs. I mean, I can just immediately imagine them go like, "You're a union thug," just in their head. Someone like Aaron Clary just sitting there steaming when you say you don't want we're against the cops, despite being leftists. He's like, he just twitches. "We need the fucking cops, you union thug."
Union thug.
And Love Life and LLAA just wants private police forces.
I'm gonna vote for Trump.
Well, I think that guy T is also saying to vote for Trump. I mean, almost all the ANCAPs online, like Stefan Molyneux, are talking about how great Trump is.
Well,
just the
alt-right,
alt-right is busy jerking off to
conspiracy buffs are too.
Yeah, well, all of the alt-right is saying is jerking off to the thought of Donald Trump's police state, because they know they'll do just fine in it because they're kiss asses. They'll do just fine because they're really good at kissing police and system ass. Yep. You're against taxes, good boy. Like, the corporations are just patting that guy T on the head, like, yep. You're against the state taxing us, good boy. Yeah, that's right. Come on, spread more propaganda for us. Come on, T. Come on, you got it. You're a good boy.
Everybody on the right, and also some liberals who do the same crap, like Steven Crowder is definitely. You know who's the most asshole alt-right / ANCAP I ever seen? Christopher Catwell. I like it to call him Christopher Cuntwell or Christopher Cockwell.
Oh, you cuckservative. You're a cuckservative if you
Well,
think anything trumps it.
He's not cuckservative. Alt-righters are cuck.
Alt-right or
just
cuck-right?
Dude, Christopher Campbell.
Yeah, that's the video.
Yeah, have you ever seen the okay, so there's this profile that has commented on my videos a few times,
Christopher Campbell is also like anti-Semitic as all fuck.
Also, I was gonna make a video.
So is Love, Life, and Anarchy. I remember the way that I was able to get it.
Jews.
The audience out there, I'm gonna make a video one day called Alt-Right or Cuck-Right, so just get ready for that.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, looking at it, these people are big kiss asses when it comes to the system. They're status quo warriors when it comes down to it. They're like, they want to literally just make everything worse for the people on the bottom. In some cases, it's very masochistic. Like, I feel like some people, when I'm saying, like, patting that guy T on the head, I'm only saying that because that guy T comes off as one of the smarter ANCAPs when it comes down to it. So, yeah, someone like that guy T, Stefan Molyneux, those are the people they're patting on the head. It's not because that guy T is black. That is not the reference I'm trying to make. I'm trying to make...
Right, I know.
Although considering the fact that that guy T is black, I could see them being a bit more like the way that they are about David Clark, where it's like, yep, blue lives do matter. Great. Yep, go out. Come on, continue to say that. Come on, spread more cop propaganda for us.
They just put these people up as, look, black people, you can make it in society. Herman Cain made it. Ben Carson made it. Come on, guys. Come on.
Yeah. Well, they made it by giving up all of their individuality, and that's not a society I want to make it in. That's a society I want. That's a society I want to destroy. That I want a new society to rise from those fucking ashes.
But the problem is, if you do that, the first people who's going to be in your way are the damn cops or terrorists, known as the police.
Well, no, when I said burning down, I'm referring to that burning down. I don't mean the society literally burning down. I mean all the power structures that make life unbearable, that make you give up your individuality. I want to see those aspects of society burn and have a new left-wing libertarian utopia rise from those ashes as the society continues to burn until there is nothing left.
Just remember when you try to destroy the power structure, the first people who are going to fight you are the
Yes, I know, because they're the status quo.
For first and foremost job
is to protect the status quo.
Like the way cops act in public and the way they act in private is also often very different, because like when they're in public and they're on patrol, a lot of times they'll act nice, and that's basically to encourage people to have a positive view of the cops and a positive view of authority, and so they'll be less likely to break the law.
It's like look at the benevolence of our authority. See, they're nice people. They're not going to do anything to you. Sure, maybe there are certain individuals in the police that want to actually help the community because they've been told that this is going to help the community, and while they're blinded to what they're actually doing, they're probably thinking, wow, I really would like to be a pillar of the community, and I would like to do good things for these people, but then don't realize that they're perpetuating the system that keeps these people down.
Mm-hmm.
It's super insidious and subversive. It's the fact that many of the police don't even know that what they're doing is absolutely criminal.
Exactly.
Absolutely
Well,
boggles
not
my
criminal in
mind.
terms of status law, but
No,
criminal in
no.
terms
When I
of
say
our rights. Yeah.
yeah, when I say criminal, I'm referring to anything that's absolutely abhorrent and disgusting. Um, basically stuff that's hurtful, harmful to people in any way, shape, or form. Like when I was like how I on the thumbnail of my video I put that where I had the picture of the heroin. I said it's a medical problem, not a criminal problem. It's not because it's not people trying to destroy society using drugs. It is people trying to cope with society, and it's a medical issue that needs to be dealt with, and we need to deal with the problem that causes it, not just deal with the system.
Do you want to hear a funny joke?
Go on then.
Hey, Bobby. Bobby.
Also,
Oh, wait, hold, hear this joke. Why did the how much cops does it take to change a light bulb?
how
No,
many?
they just need the room to be
None, because the cop beat
Hey.
the room being black.
I've heard that one before, you see, so I know it.
They'll shoot. Yeah, they'll just shoot thinking because the room's black, or they'll force the black guy to do it through slave labor because they already arrested him.
Oh, Bobby, can you look over the comment section because they're talking about Israel and Jews?
Where?
And then,
Of course, did the fucking nationalist trolls find this?
no, a
hangout?
Zionist troll found to hang out, and one of my supporters.
There's a different. I see.
Conspiracy theories kind of fought back, but yeah.
Where?
Just ignore. You're being idiots.
Well,
in
also,
the comment section.
when I say
the feed of my.
can I just say that Zionism is basically a
That's
form
true.
of nationalism?
Yeah, I like to call them Zion Nazis.
I know Zionism is a form of nationalism. That's why I'm against it. I'm not against the Jewish people. I am against the Jewish state.
Well, the thing is that most Semitic people are against the idea of are against Zionism when it comes down to it. Like, there are like when it comes to the international Jewish community, they've been very critical of Israel and what they're doing to Palestine, about how illegal it is. I mean, my cousin is a converted Jew
It's not
who hates what Israel is doing.
As much. It's not dealt with like people don't know how pervasive it is, because
if you're in politics and you don't like,
there's almost universal acceptance of Zionist dogmas, even amongst Christians, mainstream Christians.
Right.
Well, I mean, they do believe in the same God ultimately. When it comes down to it, they both believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac.
Zionist Christians, and there are anti-Zionist Christians, just as there are Zionist Jews, and there are anti-Zionist Jews.
I prefer to call Christians Christ cucks. And the alt-right cuck.
But yeah, the thing is that most people aren't Zionists when it comes down to it. Like, most of the general population isn't Zionist, but in our because the conservatives have been backing Israel for so long, no matter what they do, we basically have gone and said that it doesn't matter what Israel does, we will always back them up. And if you criticize Israel, you're automatically anti-Semitic. Bernie Sanders dared to, at one point, which Bernie Sanders also, being a politician, he's very much part of the problem and has been part of the problem historically. But he dared to question at one point the Israeli state's bombings of Palestine. And basically someone was thinking that's anti-Semitic, but they couldn't say it because they're like, wait, he's a Jew. We can't claim that a Jewish guy who is Semitic himself is anti-Semitic because that wouldn't make any sense. So now basically their ad hominem attack that was always there, where they could just call someone anti-Semitic if they even dared to question what Israel is doing.
Oh yeah, and it gets even worse. Yeah, and Israel's capitalizing on that, and they're trying to silence people and try to take away their free speech rights.
Well, I mean, I got in trouble
about the genocide. They're trying to silence people so you don't talk about the genocide they're doing.
Yeah. I got in trouble at school because I wore. I got in trouble at school because I wore a Palestinian flag as like a sign of solidarity.
How fucking dare you?
Although in their defense, they also were punishing people who apparently it was actually just a general violation of the dress code. But I mean, I immediately jumped to the thought that they're like, oh yeah, you had to be pro-Israel because they had been doing stuff like that. But they're like, well, no, it doesn't matter. You could go around showing a picture of the flag on your phone. You just can't wear it because apparently you're not allowed to put any kind of national flags, because they're actually, believe it or not, in my school was a Palestinian flag because they have flags for people to represent all the nationalities and ethnicities of the kids in the school. So every time there's someone of a new nationality, they put up a flag for it. So because there were a couple of Palestinian kids in my school, they actually did have a Palestinian flag, which is why I didn't expect that. But
yeah, anyways,
I mean,
I'm gonna say something that Ancom is gonna agree. Fuck dress code, and my caveat is as long as you're not wearing like dead animals or anything derived from animals, I'm okay with whatever they wear.
What? So I can't wear leather?
Wear a swastika. I may hate their ass, but at least I will respect their right as long as they don't. But if they land one finger on me, then it's on.
Yeah, I mean, besides, the swastika was not originally a Nazi symbol. It was tactically co-opted by the Nazis from various Eastern faiths.
I bet. I also,
namely Jainism, Buddhism, and Hinduism.
Yeah, but it also was common in pre-Christian Europe.
Oh yeah,
and in some parts of America before the genocide happened.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it was basically, well, I mean, also you look at Odinism. Odinism is now being co-opted by a lot of fascists. I have a friend who's an Odinist who they were following a bunch of Odinist pages, and then they started to realize that they would post like neo-Nazi shit, and then it's like, now because there are all these neo-Nazis who are turning to Odinism, I can't even be sure what Odinist pages are fascist or not. Because Odinism isn't an inherently fascist idea, but there are these fascists who believe that Christianity is a conspiracy created by Jews and blacks, which is absolutely fucking ridiculous. Like, these are people who are so far up their own ass. And this is like the people who believe that that men don't have it generally better in society than women do, where they're trying to say, oh no, everything's a gynocracy right now. It's like, no, it's not a gynocracy. First you claim it's equal, and then you claim there's a gynocracy. You are so far up your own fucking ass that you can't see that the problem is the powers that be. The fact that the police can kill whoever they want as long as that person didn't have any connections to power. So if that which means that because more black people lack these connections than there are white people, you're going to end up with more black people who get killed because less people just care about them when it comes to their political cards. Although,
and there's another thing. All of us in this room. Hold on. All of us in our room are autistic, and cops love to kill autistic people.
Oh yeah.
And anyone who's neurodiverse or disabled.
The cops are ableist as fuck. That's true.
Which basically means they're my enemy because of my this so-called disability in my race, my ethnicity.
Well, I mean,
sorry.
Right.
Look at the guy who got shot. There was a guy who was laying down. He was trying to get an autistic patient out of the road, and the police officer killed the black guy and then said, I meant to shoot the patient. Because killing an autistic person apparently is better than killing a black person. That's like, you shouldn't kill fucking either of them.
Oh, Bobby, can you respond?
Why did you fucking shoot? Why didn't you help get the autistic kid out of the fucking road? Yeah, not to mention the black guy had his fucking hands up. The guy had his hands up. Hands up.
You want to fucking shoot them because they're genocidal cunts.
Yeah,
maniacs.
I mean, hands up. Police will tell you to put your hands up. Basically, putting your hands up is a sign of good faith. Like, hey, you're not going to shoot me, right? Because I'm surrendering myself, and I'm not going to cause any physical harm to you. When someone puts their hands up, that's literally a sign of surrender. And even monarchies were like, okay, if someone surrenders, you don't fucking kill them. But somehow the police don't see that if someone puts their fucking hands up, if someone surrenders, that you're not supposed to execute them.
Okay, I have a controversial opinion, and you all would agree, but you wouldn't want me to say it in public. But I believe it's a person's self-defense right to, if the cop tries to kill someone or someone in their neighborhood, they have a right to defend that person or themselves.
Oh well,
By any means necessary.
I actually have said that before. Where if a police officer is shooting at you and you shoot back, it's the appropriate response.
I mean, although most of the time it is not practical because given how massive police, but if you have like a large enough crowd, you could easily get the police to run away.
Or if the police are, and so I think of it as if the police are beating on you and the crowd decides to push that police officer away to protect the person who's being beaten on, that crowd is fulfilling their moral obligations doing that. Yeah, that's not something I would say not to say in public.
Yeah, and also if I'm a black guy and I live in the hood and one of my friends was getting killed by a cop, I probably I know
Black Panthers, man.
I would think that you probably should shoot back if you know you could be able to defend yourself against a cop.
Well, I mean that was the whole idea behind the Black Panthers, was to defend black people from police brutality.
And that's the very reason why I'm against gun control.
And
a lot of people who are pro-gun control like to say that cops are hurt by guns, but I think that's why we should not have gun control, because of the exact same reason.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, my opinion is more, again, I'm not 100% sure. Like, I'm not, like, for taking away everybody's guns. And like I said, we're dealing with also a more and more militarized police force, too. I mean, I get it, because I'm an anarchist, of course I get why they're doing it, but I used to just not get why they were killing so many people. But as you look at power structures, you realize why they're getting more militarized, and that's because it is profitable.
And also, they need to keep
it.
They also need to keep it what they call this thing as those damn niggers. Sorry, I shouldn't use that word. Those damn minorities in line.
Yeah, you can say. Well, you can say that in context, and that's not an issue.
Well, I'm saying in their mind they're gonna call them niggers, and that's what they want to do is keep them in line. And because
exactly, like everybody gets that. Everybody gets that. Everybody knows that. And I mean, everybody who's aware of how the system works knows that it perpetuates racism, and everybody who's watched any of your videos would know that you are 100% against racism.
Yeah, I'm willing to make a video about the old right and why there should be called the cuck right. Seriously, they're one of our worst enemies right now. Well, beside the Cappies and the
something that I brought up that I never got to finish was so there's this guy who has commented on a few of my videos, and I've seen him whenever I watch other people's live streams. This guy is called Cucking Cucks. This guy is fucking great because he's basically a left-wing guy who will be an asshole to these right-wing people, like basically is calling these people cucks because these are the ones who, by at least their standards of what a cuck is, are actually cucks because they're the ones who are just giving into the system, letting the system screw them over however they want, and just watching without trying to intervene, which is what the whole idea of cuckoldry is. But I mean, again, it's a more metaphorical thing because they're trying to use the word cuck metaphorically. When it comes to the metaphor, the right wing is actually where the quote cucks are. I just don't use that word because cuckolding isn't actually an issue to me.
Oh, and another thing is that we have a comment from Punk Rock Truckers. I like how a lot of these liberals claim to be leftists, and they're against arms. Arms are a big part of it in the left community. Goddamn libs.
They're also big in the right-wing community too.
Yeah, historically, yeah.
Well, unless you're a threat to the power structures. So it's like, if you're the Oregon militia, you're not a threat to people. So, yeah, you know what? We're not like if that was
Actually, I have a better example. The Black Panther. Wait. The NRA supported gun control in California because of the Black Panther Party.
Yeah.
They changed their mind as soon as black people use arms.
Yeah.
So when white militias use them, keep them.
Yeah, I mean, if some Black Panthers or hell, even just some white liberal Greenpeace activists went in, like they go in and they go into they went in and did the same thing that the militia did, but without guns, and basically said, okay, we're going to stay in this building as protest. Do you think the police wouldn't have just shut off electricity or wouldn't have just gone in there and maybe shot the place up? Well, I mean, shooting the place up might have been something that they did for some Muslim protesters or for some Black Panthers. But I mean, they're definitely not going to be nice to these people, where the white militia, they're like, yeah, sure, here's some food, you can get your mail. I mean, it's not a fucking hotel, it's a war zone. Like, when it comes down to it, these men are breaking the law, but because these men are not a threat to the status quo.
It's not also because they're breaking the law. What I'm more concerned about is they're destroying a damn environment. That's a birding center, a wildlife center, and you're fucking throwing trash everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I'm also just saying, I'm saying the way that the area has been set up, it's been set up like it's a war zone, and then they're just like, yeah, you know what, we want to avoid a shootout with these people who are armed, very violent, and possibly dangerous, and some of them even fucking shot each other. I mean, if anything, if you wanted to keep the militiamen safe, shut off the fucking electricity and let them freeze out after a couple of days and basically beg to just be arrested. Like, if you're actually keen on if you're actually keen on helping society, these are the people you want to make sure are getting out of the building, because these are the people who are actually harming people.
Well, actually, shutting off the power wouldn't really hurt premies.
Well, no, because if you look at it, these people were in a warm area. Like, because the power was on, there was... I'm saying if you freeze them out and you darken them out, okay.
I know, but I'm saying
because they were
premies.
What are premies? No, I'm referring specifically to these specific people in there.
Yeah, I know. I'm just pointing that out.
I mean, I don't care about the primitivists. I mean, I really couldn't. Yeah, I mean, it obviously wouldn't stop the primitivists, but I'm saying, you look at this, I mean, any other group would go in there and literally, except for the Greenpeace liberals, white Greenpeace liberals, any other group, any other activist group would go in there and they'd actually expect a fight. So they would expect something like the power to go out. So that's stuff that wouldn't work on them, at least not right away, until it starts to cause actual problems. And even then, it's an issue that'll eventually solve itself, because if they don't have heat, they'll eventually die from complications due to stuff like that. But it's an issue where you're saying, okay, look, if you're going to play this absolutely ridiculous game, we're going to... Like, that's something that the cops would have done with anything else, where they're basically like, okay, hey, we're not going to kill you, but we're not going to let you keep that building as is. We're not going to let you keep the power on in there. But, I mean, because they were white and they weren't a threat to the status quo, Oregon militia members, they had power. They got their mail delivered to them. They got to talk to the sheriff out back, and the sheriff said that if they were going to leave town, that he would actually escort them out of town. It took weeks before before there was even, like, actual arrests, after they had already shot each other.
Yeah, anyways, we're gonna conclude in the next few minutes, and then we're gonna sign out and end the broadcast.
And I apologize for this, for being the guy who taught, probably the most.
Yeah, that's kind of why sometimes I don't want you on Hangouts, to be honest. I know that's a little harsh, but yeah. Sorry, but I'm just being blunt here. Yeah.
Yep. Well, no, I'm just waiting for the hangout to continue.
Yeah, like another thing is like I said, the way the police present themselves to the public and the way they and the thoughts they actually express in private, there is a very significant contradiction there.
Yeah, and we kind of would need to go on WikiLeaks and just expose their documents and secretly record them.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to do that. If there's anonymous out there, please do that. That'll help the world a lot.
These people's intentions are not wholesome. They are scum. They are the real criminals. They want to do genocide against people who can't stand up for themselves. We've seen this many times, and we are sick.
Yeah. They perpetuate and promote heterosexism, racism, homophobia, ableism, ageism.
Sexism.
Yeah, I said sexism.
Ah.
I mean, do you think it's a coincidence that that the police have been that the police are at their most powerful in totalitarian states and imperialist hellholes? It's not.
I guess it's Ancom and it'll be mean and we'll sign out. And then once I give my usual sign out, then I'll stop the broadcast.
Okay, no problem. Do what you need to do.
Ancom. Your speech. Ancom.
No what?
You were supposed to say your last words in the hangout.
Sorry. So that's what we've learned about cops. And what have we learned about them? They're not those people who are there to protect and serve. They're not here to protect and serve you. They are there to protect and serve the rich interests who put money into the political system to maintain the status quo. That's what you people don't get. If you mind, I'm going to try and do some like Trumpian hand movements here. Anyway,
they're huge.
Not get at all. And when we tell you these facts, you can't side with the cops anymore. If you side with the cops, you are siding with terrorism. You are siding with the bad guys. These are not good people. Maybe they have good intentions, but no, they don't even have good intentions. When you reveal what they say behind closed doors, it gets a whole lot worse. When you hear
a lot of them have
purposefully aiming for an autistic child, that's where I draw the line. That is where I draw the fucking
I drew the line long before then.
A lot of them
what are you gonna say, Bobby?
A lot of them also have like neo-Nazi and white supremacist sympathies.
Yep, some police have been outed as KKK members recently,
along
with mayors and senators.
Which is hardly surprising.
Why the fuck am I not surprised? I should be shocked at that. I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked because I know it's true.
Alright, time for
Some of those that burn crosses are the same that wear forces.
Yeah.
Or some of those that wear forces are the same that burn crosses. In other words, a Rage Against the Machine.
Power hungry sociopaths.
Anyways, yeah, since day one, the purpose of the cops, even before, the whole idea was not to stop murderers. Well, actually, because if they did, they would stop themselves and the state and the army, but to oppress you. They're there because if you get out of line, you speak out, you dare to be free, they will snipe you down. They're not your friends, they're your enemies. They're the people who will come to you when you are causing problems to the system. They're a threat to your freedom. They're a threat to you, especially if you're a person of color or poor or any other disadvantaged group or minority. They're there to get you. They kill animals, and yet if you kill their animal, you basically go to jail. But when they kill your dog, they get scot-free. They defend the system that defends the Holocaust. And because of that, there's some big-ass scum. Fuck the police. All cops are bastard. Hashtag FTP. Hashtag ACAP. Hashtag ACAB. Hashtag abolish the police. This is the vegan anarchist. No meat, no milk, no masters. See y'all.
Hashtag blue lives don't matter.
Mutual. This has been Bobby aka Mutual Freedom Fighter 3. Liberty, equality, fraternity, viva la Prud'homme, goodbyes, hashtag ACAB.
Yeah, hashtag ACAB. See ya.